NFL Week 4 preview. Welcome to the FTN Fantasy Schatz and Tanier NFL podcast for Thursday, September 26th, 2024. I am Aaron Schatz of FTN Fantasy, the DVOA guy. He is Mike Tanier. You read his Substack at miketanier.substack.com. We are here to preview Week 4 in the NFL. And of course, you can make your comments if you're watching us live. We do this every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we'll answer some questions and comments. And remember, we are not the best people to give your fantasy advice. We definitely recommend using the fantasy projections at FTN Fantasy for your start-sit questions. But we are here to talk about who's going to win games this week.
I like flailing through the fantasy questions.
Red and lines and we're, of course, brought to you by, speaking of fantasy, we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, which doesn't have start-sit questions. They have over and under questions. There's no better way to enjoy the NFL season than with Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports and the fastest-growing app in the industry. Underdog offers a new customer FTN special with up to $1,000 on a first-time deposit. The Underdog app is easy to use. All the weekly contests are back. So head over to Underdog Fantasy for a deposit match up to $1,000 when you sign up with code FTN. That's up to $1,000 extra. All you have to do for a lot of these contests is just go over or under on the yardage totals.
Great. That's great.
You know, use the FTN DVOA versus receivers numbers. Always hammer the number one receiver playing against the Washington Commanders, and you're golden.
Yeah, yours hit on Monday, folks. Aaron had Jamar Chase over 100. You teased it up to over 100.
Yeah, and that was good.
And that was good. Yeah, that worked out.
Marvin Harrison this week. So, yeah, NFL season is here. FTN customer deposit, code FTN, Underdog Fantasy. Yeah, Marvin Harrison this week, man.
Looking at it, looking it up right now.
I don't think it's posted yet.
It is not. They're afraid to put it up too soon.
Okay. We're going to skip over mostly tonight's game between Dallas and the Giants. You know, I feel like based on our priors of our knowledge going into the season, this is such an easy pick of Dallas -6 that they're not going to do it.
Yeah, I'm a little worried. Not that the Giants are good. That the Cowboys are really bad and that they're going to stumble through this one. That's my fear.
It should be an interesting game, and Malik Neighbors and CeeDee Lamb are always worth watching.
Right. That's probably where the props are going to go, assuming they're not way up in the stratosphere, which they might be, especially for Neighbors right now.
So let's start instead on Sunday at 1 p.m. with the 3-0 Minnesota Vikings at the 2-1 Green Bay Packers. I am annoyed because they are not showing this game in New England.
What are you getting?
We are getting Jets instead, Jets Broncos, because the AFC East connection.
Oh, that's painful.
I did get out my Minnesota Vikings little people. I was lazy. I didn't open up the container. I was going to get them up on my shelf with my Bills and Chiefs little people in honor of them being 3-0.
Is the dude on the left Hawkinson or just a Viking?
Oh no! It's the Vikings did not get actual players. The Vikings have generic players.
They just have a bunch of, so they just got like
two generic players and 2 fans.
Oh,
all the little people sets have 2 players and 2 fans, except the Buffalo set has 3 players.
That's a little mildly disappointing. I want a little Justin Jefferson. I don't mind having a little Viking.
Yes.
You know, maybe have a little.
Hey, the Eagles set has a little Jalen Hurts.
That's amazing.
I love the little people. Thank you to little people for sending me little people. I love the NFL little people. Okay, Vikings at Packers, and it looks like this is Jordan Love's return. It seems like it's about 75% that Jordan Love is going to play this game instead of Malik Willis, although let's be honest, what they've done with Malik Willis, I don't believe we've been able to say the words on this show yet this year, but Matt LaFleur is a freaking genius. Given what we knew about Malik Willis going into the last 2 weeks, the way that Willis has been performing is remarkable.
It's beautiful. I was watching some of the film earlier. It's beautiful. The concepts, the way they create scripted opportunities to get to all these guys in space, using the motion, using RPOs. They use a lot of things like that, and opportunities to run the zone read so that Willis can use his legs from different formations. It's beautiful. I look at it and I say, why aren't other teams with inexperienced quarterbacks using this more often? That's one of the questions I have. And my other question I have for it is, as Love returns, and maybe Love is not 100%, can't they do a lot of these things as well with Love? Which they do anyway, but they tend to open things up downfield more for Love.
If it's a knee, right? Like he's not going to be as agile on things like RPOs and read options than Willis.
No, he doesn't run like Willis even does best, and you don't want him running like this. But some of the ways that they script things up, and yes, they do that normally, is so hard to defend, and it's got like these defenses tied in knots. I almost want to use some of them with Love. Maybe not have him run the ball himself, but some of the play action concepts, some of the fake pitches that they go the other way with the ball. That's one thing I noticed watching the tape. The other thing I noticed, you know what the Packers wide receivers do really well? They block. When you get that ball on the perimeter to read, Watson and Dobbs are blocking. When you're scrambling, when Willis is Watson and Dobbs and the tight ends are blocking downfield. And that's a wonderful weapon to have when you do want to spread the ball to a lot of different targets and maybe protect your quarterback.
Obviously, against the Vikings, the big question is blitzes.
Yeah.
And I will note that Jordan Love was 5th in DVOA last year against big blitzes of 6 or more, which the Vikings do a lot. Mm-hmm. And Malik Willis, I was able to use the FTN Stats Hub, which now has DVOA updated during the season.
Nice.
For charting stats. Malik Willis is the best quarterback in the league against the blitz so far this year.
And I believe it because, again, a lot of this is design. When I see the opponent trying to blitz from one side, there is a simple scripted play to the other side.
Yeah. And by the way, the second best quarterback against the blitz this year is Sam Darnold.
Nice. Now, Darnold is banged up, but whereas they say Jordan Love is close, Sam Darnold said he is strong. So I think strong outranks close. Darnold will be out there. And that is interesting. I have not really studied that to see what's going on.
It is interesting. It is obviously very small sample size, only 3 games. The Packers so far are 5th against number 1 wide receivers. I have a feeling that will change after this game. Justin Jefferson is the uber number 1 wide receiver in the National Football League.
It's a little different baiting Will Levis into making a dumb throw to Nuke Hopkins, although Hopkins did have a couple catches too. A little different doing that. Darnold's obviously more capable than Will Levis, and Jefferson is more capable than pretty much everyone.
Yeah, and Darnold doesn't throw up the middle a lot. The Packers have been really good against passes up the middle, but I don't think that's much of an issue here. He doesn't throw up the middle a lot, especially with Hawkinson still not back from his injury. The Packers are not that good in pass rushing compared by the ESPN pass rush win rate.
Okay.
But the Vikings are just average blocking. They have problems on the interior. Their tackles are better, right? Like Darrisaw and O'Neal are better than their interior offensive line.
Yeah, but there's a problem. Garrett Bradbury is on the injured list right now. It's unclear, but he has a knee and ankle injury. He's been banged up all year, and another injury popped up. Old school point spreaders will tell you to keep an eye on center injuries, because that can change a lot of things in terms of protection calls, et cetera. You could have something as simple as a couple of blown snaps, and that's something that you have to keep an eye on.
By the way, as long as we're talking about the Packers pass rush, did you see the thing where PFF did not charge a Rashawn Gary sack to Lane Johnson and got community noted in Twitter?
Oh, my God.
That Lane Johnson gave up the sack, and then put out an explanation of why they didn't assign that sack as being caused by Lane Johnson, which I thought was really interesting. And I do not often applaud PFF for things, but I applaud them for their openness about actually explaining their process.
Did it make a lick of sense?
It did. It had to do with the fact that the whole offensive line was completely out of sorts, and everybody went at the wrong time, and they all looked at each other after the snap like we weren't supposed to do that, and then Gary went past Lane Johnson.
Is that
so? It's it wasn't really. It's not like Lane Johnson blew a block.
Okay, I think PFF and Twitter community notes are made for each other.
Yeah, but I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was interesting for them to actually openly explain, and I thought the explanation made sense. And apparently, offensive linemen thought the explanation made sense. Like Mitchell Schwartz commented on it and thought it made sense. So I think it works for me.
As long as that's what their consistent plan is, and that's not just something that popped up this particular time.
Hitchhiker's Pie says, it reminds me of how DVOA doesn't give credit to some events, like a botched snap goes against the offense, but it's not a thing for the defense. That's right. Not every sack, and this was important to us back when we did charting with Football Outsiders.
Right.
Not every sack is blamable on an offensive lineman.
Well,
there are sacks that are the quarterback ran into it after 8 seconds. There are sacks that are rusher untouched, where you have no idea who blew the line call and who was supposed to block that guy. Not every sack is a blown block.
Agreed. And to give PFF credit, they usually have quarterback sacks for I was in the pocket for 30 seconds, or I stumbled directly into the defender. And there are also unblocked sacks. These are things you always have to look at.
So back to the Packers and the Vikings. I think that while the Vikings have been the better team so far this year, the Packers are 7th in DVOA with Malik Willis at quarterback. And I think based on our priors of where we thought these teams were before the season, I feel like I would favor definitely going Packers -2.5, especially in Green Bay.
In Green Bay, I think that's a factor because I think there was a home field advantage factor for the Vikings, particularly in this last game, which had 253 false starts by Laramie Tunsil on the Houston side of things. And I don't think it's an indictment of the Vikings to say there's a little bit of course correction possibly coming into line. When you throw in some of the injuries, you do have a banged up Darnold and you have a possibly injured center, and they're kind of banged up along the defense. I am leaning toward the Packers in this one.
Now let's talk about the 2-1 Eagles at the 2-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's another 1 p.m. game. Eagles are 18th in DVOA so far, Buccaneers 20th. And interestingly, I think if we talk about our priors for before the season, DVOA did not have the Eagles very high, so it didn't really have them. It would have these two teams as being pretty neck and neck. Now, most people, I fully acknowledge, the market certainly believed that the Eagles were a good amount better than the Buccaneers before the season. I will note when I went and looked for some stats, the Bucs so far are 31st against running backs as receivers, but there has not yet been a Saquon Barkley receiving prop posted.
Interesting.
I'm waiting. It's annoying to me that receiving props often don't get posted till late on Thursday, and we do the show at 11.
Right. But I don't want to do it on Fridays. So we're going to stay on Thursdays. The Buccaneers' run defense has not been good. Now, they are getting Vita Vea back. I believe he is limited in practice, and that certainly helps a little bit. But, yeah, they don't handle running backs very well in general. I've just a general beef with the internet right now. I've been reading a lot of things and from some of my friends and colleagues about how, Baker Mayfield has really turned things around this year. Weren't they in the playoffs last year?
Yeah, he turned things around last year.
Yeah, he turned things around last year, and we can talk about how it was 3rd and long completions and things like that. But from this broad-based turning things around, that's last year's story, guys. Baker Mayfield is doing pretty much what he did last year. Maybe it looks a little better, but maybe it's because they played Washington. We saw their defense in action recently. So that's my little beef. Injury report. Injury reports got me depressed, Aaron, this week, but particularly the Eagles one. Okay, A.J. Brown almost certainly out. Devontae Smith is in the concussion protocol. It does not look particularly good right now for Devontae. If you saw that hit, should not be surprising. Lane Johnson was limited. He was seen at the walkthrough, but he was listed as a DNP. It's an illness for him. I have a feeling he's working his way back, possibly from the illness we don't talk about. And Mekhi Becton is going to be playing with a cast. This is a bad combination. Also, Britton Covey, who would normally be one of the...
Yeah, IR'd.
Yeah, good return man, and also the guy that you turn to when those guys are out. So it's like Jahan Dotson and Michael Wilson at wide receiver for the Eagles, potentially.
Johnny Wilson, I believe. Michael Wilson is Arizona's number 2 guy.
Brian Wilson. He's going to sing pet songs and gain a lot of weight and lose his mind. It doesn't look good right now for the Eagles.
Yeah, the Eagles' offensive line has been playing really well. They're 2nd in ESPN's pass block win rate and 6th in run block win rate. So again, this was something that going into the season I was a little worried about.
Right.
And I've been wrong. Their offensive line, Becton has been pretty good and Juergens has been pretty good. And of course we know that Lane Johnson, when he's playing, is obviously great. And Hurts, the funny thing is the Hurts up the middle thing. I went, look, Hurts has only 9 throws up the middle this year.
Yeah, he doesn't throw up the middle.
He does not throw up the middle. Tampa's been strong up the middle, but it's not like Hurts is going into the middle of that Tampa defense because he's not.
No, but it's going to be so much dink and dunk.
Eagles minus 2.5. Eagles minus 2.5. It seems about right to me.
That injury report, and then like as a Philadelphia fans, Buccaneers mojo against the Eagles is a really like powerful force.
So maybe Buccaneers plus 2.5 at home.
I would possibly lean in that direction. If Lane Johnson is still limited end of the week, forget about it. Don't go anywhere near the Eagles. You're right. The line is playing well. Too many things to compensate for on that side. Maybe if we get some good Smitty news, it might be a different situation.
Another 1 p.m. game, sticking in the NFC South, which has honestly proved to be more interesting than anybody would have expected.
Interesting.
The 2-1 Saints at the 1-2 Falcons.
Yeah.
My favorite team this year, the New Orleans Saints, finally entered reality last week. But not bad. No. Like they weren't, they lost, but it was a close game, and it's not like they got crushed or anything like that. And the Falcons defense it's interesting. The Falcons defense is 32nd in ESPN's pass rush win rate.
Really? The Falcons don't have a pass rush? That's new.
And even with Judon, though. Yeah. Now they have Judon.
Yes.
And 28th in run stop. Okay. And the Saints have been fantastic run blocking, but we saw Eric McCoy, when Eric McCoy went out against the Eagles, it was a huge problem. And now Eric McCoy is out for 6 to 8 weeks. But I feel like the Saints will do a better job of preparing for the loss of McCoy with a week to practice than they did losing McCoy in the middle of the game.
You've got other things to worry about. It's not just McCoy. Ruiz is also on the injury report, as is Alvin Kamara, kind of unlikely to play at this point based on the fact that I think he has 3 injuries listed, which means there's a chance they'll be going with Jamal Williams. Taysom Hill is back. They may use him more as a running back. But this I told you the injury reports made me sad. Saints offensive line injury report made me sad. Falcons injury report, we have center Drew Dahlman on the IR and Caleb McGarry did not practice. The backup to Dahlman is Ryan Nuzeel. I have no idea who he is. The backup to Caleb McGarry is Storm Norton.
He was really bad with the Chargers a couple years ago. Like enough that I know like Storm Norton equals bad.
Yeah. Right. You get like, oh no, not Storm Norton. That's the way.
How many backup right tackles do we know that we have an opinion on? Like, yeah.
That is it. No notes. Absolutely. And of course, we don't know exactly how mobile Kirk Cousins is. It's not as dire as it looked in week 1, but it's not like he's going to be scrambling around out there to protect himself.
I also advertised once again FTN Stats Hub. I was able to go and actually get defensive DVOA for Atlanta against outside zone runs specifically.
Oh my goodness.
And it's minus 7%, which is basically league average.
Right. But
it was obviously, look, the Eagles, Fangio had some wrinkles that sort of put a wrinkle on the 6-1. Yeah. The 6-1 defense wrinkled on that the Saints were not expecting, and they were not able to get their outside zone runs going. And you question whether the Atlanta defensive staff, I don't know how much Raheem Morris is a coordinator versus just the head coach, but will be able to stop the Saints' outside zone runs, which have been so fantastic this year.
Yeah, and again, they're doing it against a team with a couple injuries on the line and an injury at running back.
And the other thing I'll say from looking up stats is that the Saints are the number 1 defense in the red zone this year, and that is really not sustainable.
The Saints are number 1?
Yes. In the red zone on defense. It's a lot better than their defense has been overall, and it's really not sustainable.
And we saw what happened with the Eagles. The Eagles, I think, helped both of these teams with red zone defense because the red zone offense made so many mistakes against both of these teams.
That being said, I mean, I'm riding with the Saints this year. This is my strongest pick of the week. Like, I really feel like Saints plus 1.5.
Can't do it.
The Saints have shown they're the better team this year. Mm-hmm. This game should be like, even if you don't believe in the Saints as much as I do, this game should be like a pick 'em. So I like the Saints money line to, 1.5 is not enough points to really worry about.
Yeah, I worry about Kamara's impact as rush or receiver for a team that wants to run the ball and be diverse in the running game. Derek Carr is not on the injury list. He has been practicing, but he got chokeslammed by the Eagles at the end of that game, and it sounds like he's less than 100%. All of these things turn to me and say, I think the Falcons, I can't believe I'm saying these words, Falcons might be undervalued right now.
I was going to say your opinion is always to never, ever bet on Falcons games at all.
Right. So I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
But if I have to pick a team, I'm going to pick the Falcons.
Doing a little detour, our Russian friend, whose name I can't pronounce, says he has a betting question. Is the Cincinnati and Carolina over free money or a sucker's bet?
Warn him about overs.
Total is 47.5.
Warn him about overs, Aaron.
In this season, when the scoring is down overall, I would worry a little bit about overs. Is that the worry that you have in mind, or you have a different worry?
That's exactly it. For the last couple of years, as these decreases in scoring have come around, the over has become a harder and harder bet to just win. And I don't love it in this one.
No, I don't. I think Andy Dalton is not as good as he showed last week. No. That's nice. That was nice. But I like the under, actually, under 47.5.
I would lean on the under. And if you're in doubt because we disagree with you, don't play it. I have a feeling that the Bengals are going to right the ship in the Andy Dalton revenge game.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Oh, as far as the line goes,
yeah.
What
do we have to lay in that?
It is 4.5.
Oh, I'll lay 4.5 on that.
Yeah, that seems so obvious. Like it's like the Dallas Giants. It's almost so obvious that it's not obvious.
Right, but it's 4.5, not 6.5.
4 p.m. The main game nationwide is the Kansas City Chiefs at the 2-1 Chargers. The problem is Taylor Fire High Heineke is probably the starter for the Chargers. It's clear from the line that Vegas believes that Heineke is the starter because the line is Chiefs by 8.5, and the total is 39.5, and that total would be higher and that line would be lower if they truly believed that Herbert was going to play in this game. Plus Joey Bosa and both tackles, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt, are all dealing with injuries. So it's like, I don't think we really want to talk too much about this, even though this is the national game at 4 p.m., because the Chargers are really hurt.
The Chargers are really hurt. Derwin James is suspended.
Yep, that's also true.
Maybe it would have been the last of the Kelsey Derwin James duels or whatever. That's not going to happen. And that takes away one of the big pieces in a kind of a poor secondary. There's the guys you've heard of in the Chargers secondary who are good ball players. The guys you haven't heard of that you have to worry about, they are exploitable. And yeah, the fact that Slater and Alt are both hurt, I don't want to, and this is obviously the Justin Herbert's meme and skepticism and everything. I don't want to see him out there with both tackles hurt in that offense. I don't see the, because with him banged up, he dragged himself out there against the Steelers, and that was a big mistake. And I think dragging himself back out there or being dragged out there by Harbaugh again is a big mistake. This is almost a game for if Harbaugh is serious about health of his player and like the culture. It can't be about like go out there and like sacrifice yourself. It's like get healthy, come back when we got more bodies here, and like play for the long term.
The line is 8.5. This is like a not play for me because I feel like the odds of a Chargers of either the Chiefs kind of sleepwalking through the game or the Chargers backdoor covering an 8.5 line is strong.
That's exactly what you are in Los Angeles. The Chiefs play with their food sometimes. They absolutely play with their food sometimes. No matter what, Roman and Harbaugh are going to slow this thing down with Dobbins handoffs right up.
Yeah, the total is low. It's 39.5, which
and if you like, and if you like backup quarterback plays, then you play the other side of it and play the Chargers and look for that backdoor cover. About that, but
a better game is the 8 p.m. national game, which is the 3-0 Buffalo Bills at the 1-2, but DVOA loves them so far, Baltimore Ravens. Bills number 1 in DVOA, which I don't know if you saw my tweet. This is the third straight year that the Bills have been the number 1 team after week 3.
That makes sense.
They play really well early on.
Right. And they play really well overall until until
the playoffs, until they face Kansas City. And Baltimore is 5th. I mean, Baltimore, despite being 1-2, Baltimore is 5th. Interesting stat from the Next Gen Stats. stat pack that they send out. Spencer Brown, the right tackle of the Bills, has not given up a single pressure all year.
That's awesome.
That is really good.
Yeah.
Another interesting stat I found, the Ravens have done it much more with their pass rush than their coverage. Because one interesting way to look at this is the DVOA versus receivers numbers if you combine all receivers.
Okay.
Because what that basically does is it looks at DVOA while taking out sacks and passes with no intended receiver.
Okay.
The Ravens are 13th in pass defense overall, but they're 26th if you take out sacks and throwaways.
Interesting. So yeah, they have to get to you. They have to get home. And when you face the Raiders, I think that impacts that a little bit. And face the Cowboys when they're just chasing Dak for most of the game because they've got a lead. I talk about the pressing injury reports. The Ravens offensive line injury report. Did not practice. Patrick McCarry, Tyler Linderbaum, their center, and Andrew Voorhees. Their backups are Ben Cleveland, who's been around a while, Roger Sackengarten, and 7th-round rookie center Nick Samek. So if they have to go out there with all those threes, and you talked about the offensive line of the Bills, I've kind of like just the Bills' whole thing is they're winning on both sides in the trenches at a high level.
Yes.
I mean, everything else is working too, but like they are just winning at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and that kind of fuels everything else they're able to do. If they're going against 2 or 3 backup offensive linemen, this could get troublesome quickly.
Sturdy wants to know if he should start Zay Flowers against the Bills defense. The Bills are shutting down wide receiver 1 so far this year, 25 yards a game for number 1 receivers. I don't think they really move Benford around. Like Benford's like their best corner now. Like I don't think they move him around to specifically cover number 1 receiver. So it sort of depends, obviously, like all fantasy questions, it depends on who your alternatives are.
Right.
But I would lean against Zay Flowers against the Bills defense in this game. Also, if you consider the offensive line, there's probably going to be a lot of Lamar scrambling rather than getting the ball to receivers.
PPR might make a difference because they will force some passes to Zay if it's 6 catches for 32 yards actually helps you. That makes things a little bit different too, because you might see something like that. Zay's not the kind of guy you necessarily would like shadow either, because he is like the nifty shifty slot guy.
Right.
Yeah, you kind of defend him by defending other things and then swarming to him when he gets the ball.
Andrew wants to know if the Pats have any chance of being the 4th straight biggest underdog to win outright. Given the injuries that San Francisco has, sure, they've got a chance.
Where are we at with this line here? Oh, my goodness.
It's like 10 or something.
10.5 right now. Oh, I'm not going to play it. Get me to 12. I might play it.
The Ravens are favored by 2.5 on Sunday night.
The line, the house does the same kind of math you do. It's always the case. They see what the Ravens are capable of.
They see what the Ravens have done on a play-by-play basis. But even though this game is in Baltimore, when you tell me about that injury list for the Ravens, I would lean Bills. I'm leaning heavily on Bills because I kind of have to see it at this point. I have to see the Bills be bad. I haven't seen the Bills be bad since the first quarter of the week 1 for like they got surprised a little bit. And I've only seen the Ravens fit and start be that level of team. So I'm going with the Bills on this one. Sturdy, by the way, says he's going to start Jawan Jennings instead of Zay Flowers. And I think that that's a good move, especially because I don't know if I think exactly like Gerard Mayo, but if I am... if I'm Gerard Mayo, I have Christian Gonzalez covering Brandon Ayuk.
Correct. And the ball's got to go to somebody. And Jennings went ham last week.
Kentucky guy says, what about the Ravens zone defense against a Bills offense that has feasted on the Cardinals, the Dolphins, and a banged-up Jacksonville secondary?
I don't know. I don't have it quite at that level.
I think the Bills offense is good. Khalil Shakir is good. Like, I think the Bills are good at everything, but mostly for the Bills, it's not about zone or man. It's just Josh Allen is good at everything. And also they're blocking. They're just blocking really well so far. The blocking has been really good. They're
blocking, they're beating blocks, they're tackling. I don't think the Cardinals are a terrible team, by the way, by any stretch of the imagination. And they had the Dolphins at more or less full strength and were whomping them. And the Jaguars are, well, whatever. That's a topic for another podcast.
Right. All right. That does it for today. That does it for Week 4's preview. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Thank you to everybody who's watching. Please like and subscribe to either the live stream or the podcast, depending on how you're listening. And of course, join us every Monday and Friday. So Friday, Monday, Thursday. It's Thursday.
I don't want to work.
Monday, and don't join us on Fridays because we won't be here. Join us on Mondays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Please use our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use code FTN. Please use the FTN Stats Hub. It's filled with good stuff. You heard just a few of the cool things that I quoted during this show. And we will be back Monday morning at 11 a.m. to break all these games down afterwards. So long, everybody.